the second part here at Maple Leafs Man Advantage, dealing with the 1974 NHL playoffs, and we are in the semifinals. And as I would just say, remember at this time there were only 3 rounds in the playoffs. So in the second round or the semifinals, the Philadelphia Flyers are going to play the New York Rangers. This would be a good series. Now, the first game in this series would be in Philly. So, for this game, Rick McLeish, he had 2 goals, including the power play game winner in the first period. He also had an assist. Dornhofer, he had 3 assists. Flyers only gave up 19 shots. They were ready for this game, and they skated away with a 4-0 win on home ice. Game 2 showed the Flyers continued their winning ways. This time it was Ross Lonsberry. He had 2 goals. The first being a short-handed game winner. The other was a power play empty netter. And Perron had 28 saves, and the Flyers won 5-2. So for the third game in the series, I was actually just able to see this game, see a copy of it, or able to see this game. And the Rangers need to figure out Perron. They had 2 goals in the previous game, 0 in the first one, so they got 2 goals in 2 games. They need to figure out Perron. The Rangers are down 2-0 in the series. Um, so there you go. Perron will be in net for Philly. Over in the Ranger net, Eddie Jacquemin. So when I watched this game, things I wrote down here. First thing I noticed when I watched this game was the haircuts. Oh gosh. Boy, was the NHL ever wild and free back in 1974. In the first, the fisticuffs start early as Rangers D-man Brad Park takes on Dave the Hammer Schultz. Crazy to me how I always see Park scrapping when I watch him in games. And he played just before I started watching, so I don't. Park wasn't playing when really remember watching it. Might have been 3 or 4 years after he retired. Um, but I didn't realize how much a part that was a part of his game. Um, Rod Park is a no doubt about it Hall of Famer, terrific defenseman. Played on some great teams in New York, later in Boston. Um, yes, but sadly he never did win a Stanley Cup. But talking about great defensemen, and you must be of a certain vintage, even older than me. Um, but I think Park is truly um, could be one of the most underrated defensemen of all time, and it may have to do with the fact he never did win a Stanley Cup. But man, oh man, he was a #1 defenseman for sure. And boy, he could play any way you want to play. You want to play rough, he can go for it. Great, excellent defenseman. And I find you have to be of a certain vintage to talk about Brad Park as well, which only makes sense if you've never seen him play. But if you get a chance to watch a game with Brad Park, he was a terrific defenseman. So as for Schultz, though, we're going to look at his penalty line here, just here. He gets 2 for roughing, 2 for charging, 5 for fighting, and a 10-minute misconduct on top of that. Great job there, Dave. That's 19 penalty minutes right there. Um, Incredibly, the Flyers killed it off. And that might be an excellent ingredient as to why the Flyers might have been really good this year. They got a ton of penalties, but they seem to kill off these penalties quite well. Um, and then went on to a power play of their own when Stemkowski for the Rangers grabbed a penalty. Rick McLeish scored a pretty one as he got away from the group all alone and was tripped up, but on his knees put one past Jacquemin, and it's 1-0 Flyers. Next, sort of a crazy one is Moose Dupont. Ripped one from the point that perhaps Jacquemin could have stopped. He might have wanted to retry on that one, but it's 2-0 Flyers now. They got the lead in the first period. But the Rangers added to the score sheet as Bill Fairbairn scored, and it was now 2-1 Flyers, and that was the score after the first period. In the second, Bill Barber was left alone at the side of the net and hammered one in on a pass from Gary Dornhofer. Um, 3-1 Flyers. Joe Watson then picked up a penalty and immediately on the power play, right off the draw, Vickers was left alone in front and he scored on a pass from Fairbairn. Rangers then, they tied the game up 3-3 on Rod Gilbert shooting one from a low percentage angle, one you shouldn't probably score on, but it went off Bobby Clark's stick and went in the net very late in the second period. So we're all tied up at three at the end of two periods. Now there was a scary play in the third period where Flyers Kindrachuk was battling for the puck behind the Ranger net. Brad Park came in and his knee must have banged into Kindrachuk's head, likely, or his neck, knocking him out cold. Kindrachuk just sat on the bench when they got him to the bench. Whereas today, that player is going to the dressing room and would not be seeing action for quite a while. He had a serious concussion there, um, but he just sat on the bench. Back then, that was just having your bell rung. We know more about that now, about head injuries. And at the time, Kindershot did not come out to play again in the third. So it must have been rather obvious. Okay, don't put him out there. He's not. He doesn't have it. Where Kinderchuk might have said, "Man, I can't get out there." Um, whatever. But it's interesting seeing that the method in which he was kept off the ice would be totally different now. This isn't 1974 anymore. We know more about head injuries at this time. Um, but the Rangers finally took the lead after Jim Watson got a penalty. Big play in front where Brad Park shoveled it in past Perron. Gilbert then pumped one in coming into the zone. Perrot maybe should have had this one. He'd probably want to read you on that one. But the Rangers are up 5-3 now. They have figured out the Phillies, wrong sport, the Flyers defense. They're up 5-3 here. And then guess what? We're playing the Flyers, right? The fights then started. And the game was totally slipping away from the Flyers, which is funny because they're only down by 2 goals. Like you're still in this game, guys. But the fight started here. Vickers against Dornhofer, each handed their penalties. So who does Shiro, the coach of the Philadelphia Flyers, put on the ice? Schultz. Who else would he put out there? And who did like? This is what I didn't like about him. Who does he go after? Who does he try to pick up with? Rod Gilbert, of all people. Come on. I didn't like that. You're going to pick a fight with Gilbert, who had 20 penalty minutes the whole season. You're going to pick up a fight with that guy, which is less than Schultz picked up in this game. So Francis, coach Emil Francis of the New York Rangers, he sends Ron Harris out on the ice, and these two drop the gloves, Harris and Schultz. Um, but refs got in between them before next round of fights start. The fans actually start pelting garbage down on poor Bernie in the net of the Flyers. The commentators are really starting getting on ref Brian Lewis, who was the ref of this game, on his case, which I agree. He wasn't 100% correct on his calls, and maybe he should have given Harris a 10-minute misconduct as well, but he's trying to not let the game get right out of control, which is crazy. As I said, the Flyers are only down by 2 goals. You guys got offense. You guys can come back. Don't start the shenanigans, but that's what they're doing. Um, and there was still 5.5 minutes left. There's still time on the clock. You can come back here. Um, but I was definitely seeing in this game why the Flyers were so strongly loved or so strongly hated. It was on display here in this game. But now the game is getting out of control as Park and McLeaf start fighting. Um, but Lewis did the right thing and gave them enough penalty minutes. These two are done for the night. They're not going to see the ice again. But the Rangers took game three by a 5-3 score. And in my opinion, the Flyers needed to tighten up defensively um, better than they showed here. Start beating the Rangers to the puck and stop parading to the penalty box. That could be tough. These guys are bullies, but that didn't help them in this game. Do these things in this series, might still be in your control. If you don't, it might slip right over to the Rangers' hands here. So game four was at Madison Square Garden again, and the Flyers defense was getting better. And Perrant made 35 saves in this game. The game went into overtime, and it was Rod Gilbert who scored the game winner, and the Rangers win it 2-1. And the series is tied up, knotted at two. So we're going back to Philly. When they were showing, they must have been very difficult to play within their barn. I think it was very difficult to play the Flyers on their ice at this time. For Game Five, McLeish scored two goals, including the game winner. Perron had 27 saves, and the Flyers took Game Five by a 4-1 score. The Rangers had to rebound or bring back the action they showed in game three and four on home ice for game six, or they will be eliminated. But for game six, Perrant made 34 saves, and it was Ron Harris who scored the game winner, and Jackman had 24 saves, and the Rangers did take the game 4-1. So it's tied up at three, and we're going to game seven. So game seven, I was able to see this one as well. This one I was excited to see. Game seven, winner take all. Um, Whoever wins is going off to the Stanley Cup Final. For the game, it was Art Skaub who was reffing, and then that's where the usual suspects: Bernie Prom for the Flyers, Eddie Jackman for the Rangers. Unfortunately, I did not see Kate Smith singing, but the crowd seems to be electric in Philly for this game. To let you know as well, the series at the time set a record. This series for the most penalty minutes in a playoff series. This broke all that record of all the series before it. That record has since been shattered. Many other series after this broke the penalty minutes of this series. Um, and some of the Leaf teams were involved with it. And there was a series with the Leafs and the Flyers. I think in a couple years that breaks this record here. And there were some Leaf teams of the 80s um, that broke this record as well. So it'll be interesting once I get to those. There'll be penalty filled nights as well. Um, but for this game, this fight started again as it was Schultz. He took on Dale Rolfe in front of the Rangers net. Um, Schultz definitely won the fight. But without a doubt, I saw he was actually pulling his hair. Um, seems, oh, I didn't like that. It seems really low to me. I'm really starting to not like Schultz here. I'm not liking him. Um, I don't like his how he's playing. But it's working. I give him credit for that. He's looking for every advantage, or he's very advantageous in each situation. And hey, he's getting away with it. The refs aren't calling him on it. I don't think I would be pulling somebody's hair in a fight. But that's what was going on here. Um, and it's due to Schultz. I just can't cheer the Flyers on. I can't do it. So I'm cheering for the Rangers here. Um, the Rangers scored on a goal that likely wouldn't have counted nowadays, as Bill Fairburn popped one in as Walt Kachuk certainly interfered with Bernie Perrant in the net. That was 1974. Different times. Totally different game. It was fine then. Um, but Walt later then picked up a penalty. Rick McLeish was left wide open in front, who popped one in on an assist from Bobby Clark to tie the score. And after the first period, we're tied up at one. So in the second, Kinderchuk, uh, hopefully not dealing with any further problems from his serious head injury in game three, doubled the puck into the open net as Jackman was down and out. Flyers take the lead 2-1. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the commentators. I believe it was Gene Hart talking about an incident that happened earlier in the series. I'm going to talk about it now. During game four in overtime, the Rangers, Rolf, took a shot, and it was the Flyers' Barry Ashby. He was actually hit in the eye. It was a serious injury, and his playing career was over. It was very serious. But next season, he steps in as an assistant coach for the Flyers. Sadly and tragically, Barry passed away in 1977 of leukemia, and he was only 37 years of age. Barry Dornhofer then shoveled in Philly's third goal of the night, as once again, Jackman was down and out with all these plays in front of the net. Philadelphia leads 3-1 after two periods. They have a good they are in good control of this game, and the Rangers need to steal that control if they want to win the game. Um, yeah, and if they don't, series is over. In the third, after the Rangers grabbed some control back, they were um, really playing well here. Vickers put one past Perron on a pass from Kachuk. Yet within no time, Dornhofer popped in his second of the night to give Philly the two-goal lead once again. Nice pass from Lonsbury from behind the net. Former Leaf Pete Semkowski fired one in on a rebound off a Rick Sealing shot. It was 4-3 Flyers. With 4 minutes left in the game, found another level, and the crowd was getting amped up here in Philly. They were screaming, just ready to get to the finals for the first time ever. The Flyers worked to keep the Rangers at bay. Incredibly, the Rangers were called with 50 seconds left in the game for too many men on the ice. That's a knife in the heart right there for the Rangers fans. I imagine back then. Um, so the Rangers had to get the puck out of their zone into the Flyers zone and work in some offense, and you have one less man on the ice. In turn, the Flyers did a good job in playing keep away in the Rangers zone. The clock ticked down. They're eating at the clock, just eating at the clock. That's all they're wanting to do. And Bobby Clark fired his arms in the air as he carried the puck into his own zone. The Flyers won the game and the series by 4-3. Jackman had 42 saves and Perron had 31. So the goalies were on this night, but the Flyers are off to the finals. So for this series, Rick McLeish had 7 goals, 2 game winners, 10 points in the 7 games. Lonsbury led the team with 6 assists. He also had 9 points. Whew, here we go. Schultz, he had 69 penalty minutes in 7 games. So far, he's got 101 penalty minutes in just 11 games. Wow. So for this series, the Flyers had 6 power play goals. McLeish had 3 of them. Lonsbury had a shorthanded goal for the Flyers. And in net, Perron's save percentage was 929. Still brilliant. And he had a shutout as well. So, just to talk about the Rangers again, the Rangers were one of the teams of the 70s. They're one of a long list of them. Chicago Blackhawks would be another one. They were very good, but they were just never able to win a Stanley Cup. Really, like that final step to win it all, they just couldn't do it. And boy, did they ever have some good teams during that decade. So we're off to the finals now, and it's the Flyers. They're going to be playing the Boston Bruins. Oh boy, is this going to be a rough and tough Stanley Cup? We're going to find out here. Um, so the Bruins, they beat the Leafs in the opening round. The Blackhawks in the semifinals, they eliminated them in 6 games. For that series, Phil Esposito had 6 goals and 8 points in the 6 games. Phil also was an ex-Blackhawk, so that probably felt good for him. And Johnny Busick had 5 goals and 9 points as well. So for the finals, it's the number 1 Boston Bruins against the number 2 Philadelphia Flyers, 1-2 in the regular season. So the opening game would be played at Boston Garden. Bobby Orr scored the game-winning goal with less than 30 seconds left in the game. Boy, oh boy. He also had an assist. Gilbert had 27 saves, and Boston won it 3-2. So for game two, it was Art Skov who's reffing. And in the nets, we got Bernie Prom for the Flyers, Gilbert for the Bruins. Early in the match, rookie Al Sims rattles one off the post from the point to almost give the Bruins an early lead. Didn't go in though. Terry O'Reilly, he fights Schultz, which is something I was coming to expect would happen here between these two teams. Both were really throwing the knuckles, oh boy, and trying to land them. Boy, oh boy, two fierce competitors there. And then the Bruins went on a 2 minute 5-on-3 with Schultz and Gladden picking up penalties for the Flyers, but the Flyers killed it off. Boy, oh boy. And then but after killing it off, a few seconds after that, Wayne Cashman knocked one in right sorry, he was to the right of the net, I believe, and the Bruins had a 1-0 lead. So they were still able to take the lead on the Flyers here. Esposito then shoveled one home to give the Bruins a 2-0 lead and a nice hold of the game early here for the Bruins. The Bruins held on to that lead to wrap up the first period and were leading the Flyers by a 2-0 score. So early in the second, Bill Flatt of the Flyers, he rips one from the point. Clark's in front, tips it in, and beats Gilbert. Um, Tiny bit of a surprise as the Bruins really look to be taking control of the game, but the Flyers are able to get one in. So they cut that lead in half. Um, I guess I'm partially to blame for the surprise I should have. The Flyers do have a very good team. Um, but the Bruins just seem to have it going here today. Yes. Now before the series started, people thought the Flyers were going to be over their heads against the Bruins. They really thought the Bruins were just gonna destroy the Flyers. That's not what happened. The Flyers were showing these people how wrong they were. Lovely play when Perron took out Cashman, who breezed past his net. Perron took him out. Um, Perron got caught though, and the Bruins went on the power play. Um, but the Flyers, once again, they killed it off. Kindrachuk and Andre Savard went at it in the corner. Savard of the Bruins. And then they were called for two, like 2 minute minor penalties. And probably today those would be 5 minute penalties. And at this point, I swear I saw King Clancy and Harold Ballard of the Leafs watching the game from the crowd in Boston. The score holds at 2-1. Bruins have the lead through two. If they can hang on to this, they're up 2-0 in the series. Yeah. Early in the third, the Flyers were pressuring the Bruins on the power play and just couldn't help but notice what a great player Bobby Orr was. Could he ever move the puck? And he was an excellent skater. Andre Savard takes on Don Selesky now, and once again, Savard gets 2 minutes for roughing. I love that. It's not a 5 minute fighting, that's 2 minutes for roughing. They both had their gloves off and were swinging punches at each other, but that's just roughing back in 1974. With 52 seconds left, though, we're almost at the end of the game. Moose DuPont popped one in for the Flyers, tying the game with his tying goal. He was in the slot, and a great pass from Rick McLeish, who was in the corner. It was DuPont's third goal of the playoffs. He wasn't a real big goal scorer, but he's getting some important ones here for the Flyers in the playoffs. The Flyers should be proud as they have kept it close here and kept it going with the Bruins, the big bad Bruins, and had a noisy crowd to deal with cheering the opposition on all night. And we're taking them to the limit here in game two. And we're now going to overtime to try and tie the game on the road, win this game, go back home, 1-1. We'll see what happens. In overtime, the Bruins had chances early, but Perron was able to prevent them from scoring. Was doing a good job. Gilbert had to get hot when Terry Crisp of the Flyers in the slot tried to shoot one past him. And then back on the other end, Johnny Busick was in all alone, but Perron shut the door, preventing the Bruins from scoring. It was the Flyers, though, that grabbed the win when Bobby Clarke was alone in front and was able to fire in his own rebound. It was his second of the night and fifth of the playoffs. The Flyers were going home now, and the series was tied at 1. A pivotal win for the Flyers and a wonderful rebound after losing game one, just seconds left in the game. So, game three, they were in Philly. Perron had 24 saves in this game, and Terry Crisp, he scored the game winner in the first period. Philly took it 4-1. They were turning the tables here and had the lead in the series. For game four, the Flyers kept it coming as Perron had 28 saves. Phil Barber ended up with the game winner. Flyers took it 4-2 and were up 3-1 in the series against the Bruins. The series shifted back to Boston, and the Bruins had to bring their game or the cup could be handed out on their ice to the opposition. For game five, though, Bobby Orr showed up. I'm sorry, I should rephrase that. Bobby Orr put the team on his back. I'm making it sound like Bobby didn't play till now. But in game five, he scored 2 goals, including a game winner, and had an assist. Gilbert had 26 saves, and the Bruins knocked down the Flyers with a 5-1 win. They were not going down easily, the Bruins here with that win. So we're going to game six. We're going to Philly. And you betcha, I was able to see this game as well. And Kate Smith comes out to sing God Bless America. Boy, they loved her in Philly. Would Aretha Franklin give as big of an ovation as this? They loved Kate Smith in Philly. And there was reason. The Flyers had an incredible record when she sang. Their record 36 wins, 3 losses, and 1 tie. That's an incredible record. I think who did the game was WTAF, which I did some investigating. That's WTXF now. For anybody who may know that channel, they had brought the previous Flyers games. I've enjoyed their stuff quite well. Really enjoyed it. They're doing this game here. I never grew up listening to these guys, so these guys are new to me, and they're yeah doing a good job. I enjoy it. Um, but of course, they're Flyers commentators, so they're Flyers fans, so they lean towards the Flyers. I don't care. I'm a big Joe Bowen fan. He's a Leaf fan. He leans for the Leafs. He doesn't do it all the time, but man, you can tell he's cheering for the Leafs. And I'm okay with that. I was thinking Danny Gallivan with the Montreal Canadiens, one of the best of all time. You know he was cheering for the Montreal Canadiens. Come on. He was a fantastic commentator, though. And I don't care. As long as you're not really putting it in for the other team or not giving everybody a fair shake. I don't care. Um, to be honest, I actually like it that you are a fan of the team. It means you're a fan of the sport. You're not just, oh, I love hockey, but I don't like any team. That makes no sense. I really like that you can hear it. You're not seeing it, but you can hear it. These guys have got their heart in the game. They love it. I enjoy it. As I said, as long as you give everybody a fair shake. If you don't do that, it doesn't work out very well. But anyways, so with this group, we have Gene Hart and Don Earl. Um, but for this game, it was done on NBC. It was Tim Ryan, Ted Lindsay, former NHLer, and Brian McFarland, who did stuff on Hockey Night in Canada as well. So this game is on NBC. So here we go. We're in game six in Philly. Flyer fans are ready to see the Stanley Cup raised at the Spectrum. See what happens. In net for the Flyers, who else? Bernie Perron. In for the Bruins, who else? Gilles Gilbert. Art Skov, he's the ref. And I must say, the games in which I've seen him ref, he doesn't really seem to lose control of the game. I like that. You need to do that, especially at this time. You can't let these games get away on you, or they can turn out bad and bloody, and the game goes where to you don't want it to go as a referee, really, right? Um, so looking at the sweaters to start the game, I I'm not sure if I said this in any of the other videos, but when I was a kid, I liked the Leafs, but I also really liked the Boston Bruins. They were not in the same division. Like the Leafs were in the Norris division, the Boston Bruins were in the Adams. But I really liked the Bruins. They had Ray Bork, Cam Neely, Andy Moog, Reggie Lemlin, Rick Middleton. I liked the Bruins and I loved their jerseys or their sweaters. I really liked that. Um, and they're in their away uniforms here, so they have the black and gold or look going, and I love that. That look. I wrote down here, it must be very difficult to come up with team sweaters or team emblems. I personally believe you need a balance between detailed and simple. And to me, all original six teams have got it. And the next grouping, um, the six that came in, I don't know about the Golden Seals, but um, Kings, I don't know, but I don't know. They weren't as good, but there were some really good ones. Like I always really like the Minnesota North Stars look. It's detailed but simple, right? Like it's got both going. Um, I think teams like the Florida Panthers, Phoenix Coyotes, and the Minnesota Wild. To me, there's too much going on in their emblems. It's too busy. Um, I like the colors though of some of those teams, but the emblem, there's too much going on to my eye and what I'm used to and what I like. Um, but whatever. That's my opinion on that. Um, but I also understand it must not be an easy job to come up with these emblems or decide on what you really want for your team look and colors and emblem and everything like that. So, anyways, in this game, the play is amped up even further than it was in game two, the other game I was able to see in the finals. When watching a goalie with the talents of Bernie Perrant, it is sad in my mind that that goaltending really has changed quite a bit, and has suited much more of the tall goalies. Um, well, like at this time, like Ken Dryden, he was very tall goalie at his time. But now it was never used then, but a butterfly style. That really got its popularity um, by Patrick Waugh using it. And Patrick Waugh was 6'2". That's tall. But I believe you need to be that tall in order to effectively use that style of play. If you're 5'8", you're leaving the top of the net wide open. That butterfly style ain't going to work very well. Perrant was 5'10", way too short to be playing butterfly. Um, but man, um, he was an A goalie. Um, Whoever doesn't put him in that category, they need to watch these games again. Watch him play in 1974 and 1975 playoffs. Um, he won a Conn Smythe in both of those playoffs. He was the best goalie in the league. He was an A goalie. He did and could win you a Stanley Cup. He was fabulous. But the one thing I remember about Bernie is a shot would come in, and he played the stand-up style, but he would then kick the puck with the pad, make a pad save, but he would kick the puck into the corner each time. Boom, 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 boom. He'd be kicking these pucks out or kick it to a defenseman or perhaps even a forward, maybe, but he knew what he was doing with the puck and he deflected it exactly where he wanted to put it. And it was amazing because You know what that means? No rebound. You're not going to be in front getting that rebound. He would put the puck where he wanted, and that's what made him such a wonderful goalie was that ability that he had, and I really, really enjoyed watching him at this time, and I could see, boy, was he ever, um, like he at the same time, he likely, I, I, I wouldn't say it would be worse then, but that would be foolish. But he likely had a better team in front of him as well, that could give him the space needed to do this. Rough and tough defenseman. The Leafs had that too, though, but in comparison to when he played in Toronto, I could really see his game had really come to this next level. And it may have started with him, or a big ingredient into that was him playing with Jacques Plante in Toronto, playing with his hero, showing him some tricks in the net, showing him how to play better than he had been playing. And yes, he was showing us at this point that, boy, oh boy, he was an A goalie. There is no doubt in my mind. Um, so yeah. So in the game, right in the first period, Moose Dupont shot one from the point. Boom! And it found its way past Gilbert. It was Rick McLeach who actually ended up tipping it in front of the net. This was his 13th goal of the playoffs. Wow. Uh, I've seen this play before I saw this game. There's a clip here of Dupont running on the ice after the goal. Um, yeah, that's what that was from was this goal here, and the Flyers were able to hold on to this slim 1-0 lead at the end of the first period, and the game kept going, and the defense was on the foreground, I guess. In this game, it was a defensive game through the second, no goal scoring, getting into the third. Getting further into the third, we only got 5:06 left in the game. And Johnny Busick is called on a trip on Rick McLeish, which looked like the hook of all time when you see the air that Rick McLeish takes. Um, Might have been a little dive on that one. But luckily, the Bruins were able to kill off this penalty. Um, but the penalties kept coming. Uh, or even got a penalty with less than 2.5 minutes left in the game. Boy, oh boy, that things mean must have made things incredibly difficult for the Bruins here. Um, and in the end, the Flyers won the game. They were able to stave off the Bruins, able to beat them in Game 6 by a slim 1-0 score. And they became the very first expansion team to ever win the Stanley Cup. It was the Philadelphia Flyers. And they did it in wonderful fashion here, I must say, over the Boston Bruins. There were a number of fans that spilled out onto the ice when the cup was handed out to the Flyers, and you could hardly see the players. That would never, ever, ever, ever happen today. It happened all the time back in the 70s. And even into the 80s, I think that was still going on. So looking at the Flyers for the playoffs, um, big props here to Rick McLeish. He led his team and the NHL. He had 13 goals and 22 points in just 17 games. Bobby Clark led the team with his 11 assists. He also had 5 goals. Incredibly, I got to keep talking about this. Dave Schultz had 139 penalty minutes in only 17 games. So at this time, they used to play 78 games in a season. So if you equate that over a 78 game season, that would give Dave the Hammer Schultz 638 penalty minutes in one season. No one has ever got that many penalty minutes in one season. So Schultz was showing how much of a bully he was. and it was working. The Flyers ended up, yeah, they won the Stanley Cup, so it was working. And the Flyers had 14 power play goals in 17 games as well. McLeish led the NHL with his 5 power play goals. Dornhofer and Lonsberry had the shorties for the Flyers. And McLeish led the NHL with his 4 game winners in the playoffs. In net, Bernie Parent led the NHL with his 12 wins, his 933 save percentage, and his 2 shutouts. He also had a 202 goals against average. Not too shabby. Incredible numbers there, and that led to him getting the Conn Smythe Trophy for the Flyers. Big props to Rick McLeish, though. He was a big part of the win as well for the Flyers. So there you have it. And that is it. The 1974 NHL playoffs. The Flyers win the cup, and that season's over and done. So, yes, anyways, if you liked this video, don't be afraid to hit like. As well, I would appreciate it if you subscribe as well. I've got other videos on here as well, dealing with the Leafs generally, but talking about hockey through history and looking at why the Leafs haven't won a Stanley Cup since 1967. And if you want to comment on anything, go ahead and do so. I'd love to talk hockey. But until next time, go Leafs go.